Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a fun video as I take you along with me while we do a house project. Now if you know me, you know that I love a good DIY. I love any projects and crafts and any chance I get to build things and make things and create things. So I knew when we built our home that we wanted to do a tile backsplash in the kitchen. But when it got down to the time to do the backsplash and the building process, there was just too many things going on, and so that kind of got put on the back burner. So here we are a little over a year later, and I'm finally getting the chance to do my backsplash, and I'm so excited. So I wanted to take y'all along with me as I do this process and create a video and show you how you can also do this to your home as well. Now I will tell you this is going to be a two-part video due to the nature of the length of the project, so stick around if you're waiting to see the end result. That video will be posted next week, but today I want to start off and show you what we do first and how I prep and get ready to do a tile backsplash. So something I didn't record was taking down my floating shelves and just cleaning off the surface. Anytime I'm going to do a project, I like to have the area as clean as possible beforehand so that I have all the working space that I need. But once I finish that, what I'm doing is I'm marking the center point of the wall. Now the range hood and pop filler are focal points, so that is what I'm considering my center point. And I'm making a line, making sure that it's level all the way up and down so that I can start my tile here. What I did was I marked the center of the tile and I lined that up with the center of the point on the wall. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to make sure when I laid my tile that once it was center with the wall, that's where that tile would hit, and so that would be the focal point. It wouldn't be off center by having one tile started off from one side to the other and it being offset. So you want to start tiling in the middle and then work your way out versus left to right. That way, like I said, it's always center and it makes sense. And then I flip the breaker, obviously, but I'm taking all of my outlet covers off and I'm unscrewing the outlets from the wall. And the reason being is you're going to tile up to the outlet box, and later in the video I actually show you how to tile around the outlets. But you always want to make sure, obviously, you flip the breaker first, that there's no electricity running to your outlet. But then you're going to unscrew, and I just kept like a sandwich bag nearby, and I kept all the screws and the covers in that bag and I labeled them. That way when it came to the end of the project and I could put it back on, I had everything there. Now sometimes you might have to get longer screws depending on how like the length of your original screws are. I actually thankfully didn't have to do that, but usually you will. But anyways, just keep all of your stuff together just in case. Now we're jumping right into the fun part. So I decided to start tiling this sidewall. This is where we keep the coffee pot, like coffee stuff over here. And so I wanted to start with this section first, and I just did this piece, like this wall area, for the first day, and then the next day I moved on. This project, I knew it would take me a long time, and I was fully prepared for that. And I was prepared to just take my time with it and go as slow as I needed to. I'm not a professional. This is actually only my second time doing tile work, but it's in my kitchen and it's a focal point. So I didn't want to rush through it and not be happy with the end results. So like I said, I took it day by day. I've labeled in the video like how many days it ended up taking. I think it came out to like 8 days. But I just worked a few hours each day after work, and like I said, I took my time. But you'll see here, you can see the middle line. Even on this wall, I still did not work left to right. I still maintained that center piece tile. I didn't want anything to be offset. I wanted everything to be as symmetrical as possible. So I started in the middle and then I worked my way out. And I'm using a pre-mixed mortar. So now you can get mortar that is in like a powder package and you can make it, mix it, and I do that for my grout, but I really don't like doing that when it comes to the mortar because like I said, I knew it was going to take me several days. I didn't want to have to spend 30 minutes every single day just remixing mortar, and if you don't get it mixed to the same consistency, then it might not work as good, or it might not look as good. It's just not gonna be the same result every time unless you do it exactly the same. It's kind of tricky. So I opted for the premix mortar. It is a little bit more expensive, but in my opinion it was well worth it. I've even seen some people use I think it's called muscle bound, which is basically like a sticky tape that you put on the wall. Now I will tell you from personal experience, I tried to do that whenever I did the tile around my fireplace, and I did not have much luck with it, but I've seen a lot of other people use it and have had tremendous luck, and they say it's super easy. That is very expensive. Now it would cost me a lot of money to do this much tile work with the muscle bound, so even though the pre-mixed mortar was more expensive than the powder mixture, the muscle bound would have been even more, so it just made more sense for me to go this route. So I've actually linked all the exact products that I used for this project in my LTK, but I'm just going to kind of go over a list of some things that I'm using here in case you are looking to do this project too, and I'll leave it in the description box as well. But whenever you're doing tile, you're going to need a trowel. I can't remember the exact size that I used. I used a little bit smaller one. It was just easier for me to work with, and that's also going to depend on if you're laying large tiles or small tiles. And then, like I said before, the pre-mixed mortar. And you need to read on that and make sure that it's okay and safe for like wet areas, or if you have a fireplace and it's going to be exposed to heat. So check with your local hardware store, wherever you get it from, and make sure it's the right one. But definitely, I can't advocate enough for the premix mortar. And then the tile of your choice and spacers. Now your spacers will determine your grout line size, and I wanted a very small grout line, so I went with a 1/16 of an inch spacer, and I ended up needing to use T spacers as well. The other ones, I think we call them biscuit spacers. I don't know if that's technical, that's just what I called them, but they're round. And then the T spacers basically were shaped like a T. And I used the T spacers as a space along the base where the tile would meet the countertop, because you don't want to lay your tile directly on the countertop. You want to leave a space there. And then, as you can see here, when I tiled to the corner, I left a space for like a grout line there as well. Now I am going to be tiling around my pot filler. I'm actually taking the tile all the way to the ceiling. So earlier you saw me kind of breaking loose the caulk around the pot filler, and all I did was I scored the caulk and then peeled it off so that the plate that goes around the pot filler can slide forward and I can tile behind that. I want to talk a little bit about the saw that I'm using. So this is a wet saw, and essentially what that means is the water runs through the tubing and through the saw and onto the blade, so that when you're cutting your tile, water will come over it. They're not really hard to use, honestly. I think they're a little bit more intimidating than they truly are. Make sure you wear glasses. I'm just wearing sunglasses here because I didn't have any safety glasses, but anytime you're using power tools, it's always obviously in the best interest that you use safety glasses. And I always say measure like 15 times and cut once, so that you're not wasting as much tile or wood or whatever project you're doing, whatever product you have. But all in all, the wet saw is definitely easier than the alternative, which is a score and snap, and that would be like more handheld manual tile cutting. I've personally never used those. I've always done a wet saw and have had a lot of luck with them. So this was day 2, and again I just started in the center and then worked my way out, and I was just doing a little bit each day as I could with the time that I had. This starts day 3 of the tile project, and my goal for this day was to work all the way to the end of the wall where the corner meets. And you'll see here shortly, I will talk you through how to tile around an outlet, because it can be a little bit different. and how you make your cuts for that. So make sure you listen for that if you have outlets. Now, if you're doing a tile project and you are fortunate enough to not have any outlets or anything to cut around, then you are very lucky. Thankfully, I didn't have too many outlets. I only had 3 that I had to cut around, but I did have to cut around all of my floating shelves and then the range hood, and of course the pot filler, which you will see that here coming up shortly. So I'm actually using a small putty knife here to put the mortar on the wall, and then I'm going back with my trowel. That's optional. A lot of times you can just use your trowel and dip it in the bucket, put mortar on it, and spread it onto the surface. I found that it was easier as I was getting less mortar in the bucket and I had to go deeper. It was easier for me to use this smaller putty knife, and then anytime I had a smaller area that I needed to put mortar in, the putty knife really did help. I will also show you later in the video how to back butter, which essentially is putting mortar on the back of a tile as you see here and spreading it out. The main thing about using the mortar behind the tile is that you want to have a consistent amount of mortar in the space that you're using, otherwise your tile will actually be unlevel. Now I'm using a hammered kind of texture tile here, so that leaves room for errors. It's not as noticeable with that versus having a completely smooth tile. But again, y'all, I said it's my focal point. It's in the kitchen. I want it to be as professional looking as it can, and I'm not a professional, so I was doing my best and just taking my time. This one I want to show you how you cut around an outlet. So whenever you're cutting around your outlet, you're trying to get as close as you can to the box without covering your screw holes, because when you put this back on, you want to make sure that this rests on the outside of the tile so that it's not recessed into the wall, and that you can still put your outlet covers back on, and that the screw from the covers will screw over the, well, not over, but into the sheetrock, not on the tile. Okay, so for my first piece, I'm cutting this one right here, and to measure where to cut, I've just kind of lined it up right there. I've used my pencil to see where I should mark, and just by eyeballing it, I've made a little pencil mark on the tile, as you can see right there. I flip mine over and I draw on the back. The back of the tiles have these like checker points or whatever, check marks on there that you can use for guides whenever you're cutting. So I always cut mine upside down and use that to make sure that I'm keeping my straight line, because the saw is a wet saw, and so this is pencil. It generally washes off when the saw turns on, but I can follow that line anyway so that I know where I'm at and I'm staying on it. So that will cover that side. When I get to the top and the bottom, I'm gonna have to notch it. So for that, again, I set it here, and I have mortar on the wall so it can kind of hold it just so that I can do my pencil marks. And I kind of go up here and just lean over, see where I need to mark it on both sides. And then I'm gonna pull it out. So I have marks on both sides so I know how wide to cut. And then I'm going to, I can tell by eyeballing it how far down it's gonna come. And honestly, this is not exact. I'm gonna use my pencil. And so from the bottom of the pencil to the top of my finger is how deep I need my cut. So what I'm gonna do now is, starting from my marks, I'll line that up here, and I'll mark on the tile down to where my fingers are. Let me show you. Right here, I came down, it ended up being 2 squares, and I did the same thing on the opposite side, and then I'm gonna connect that line. So essentially, when I cut the tile, that will be my notch piece, and it'll fit there. And then I'll have to do similar for my bottom piece, and then once I get to the opposite side, I'll show you that too. But I'm gonna go ahead and make these cuts, and then I'll be back. I have made my cuts and I went ahead and put those on, Now on the opposite side of the outlet, I know initially you would want to just take your full piece and just butt it up here thinking you don't have any cuts. Let me tell you why that would not be right. So I'm doing a subway tile pattern, and the way your subway tile pattern lays is that these center pieces line up with the direct center of your tile. So if you were to do that, all of a sudden you would get to the end of the wall and it would be off. So basically what I've done is, before I started, I went ahead and measured how long each tile was, so I knew exactly what my center point was. And since I have kind of a starting guide down here, I know that as this one ends right here, that's going to be the center of the next tile that's on top. So I have taken a full piece of tile, and underneath here I drew my center point and I just lined it up. So I went ahead, I can put that on the wall here. I know that it's lined up center, but as you can see, it leaves a gap here. Now that gap is too big, I would say, for the outlet cover. Let's check. To cover it whenever we put this stuff on. So I'm probably gonna have to cut a small tile to go there. Yes, so you see how you would see that? I'm gonna take one of my other scrap pieces of tile. There's no reason of getting a whole brand new one. And I'm going to mark. Okay, I've marked exactly where it is. Since I'm using spacers, I'm gonna have to take a spacer and I've made my mark. I'm gonna use a spacer. The spacer will go on this side of the mark, and it's so small, it's so hard to show you on the camera, but I'm gonna make another line so I know where my cut is. So now I have made my cut mark. I can go cut this and put that there. When you are cutting things this small, you have to be really careful because you don't want them to bust or chip, and that can happen very easily. So when you're cutting these, be careful, cut slow, and hopefully it won't crack. So we're gonna go cut it and I'll be right back again, see if it worked. It did not chip, thankfully, and I'm gonna put it in. Now this is the regular edge of the tile. This is my cut edge of the tile. You want your cut edge to be inside the outlet so that you don't see that. So I'm gonna put it in. And also, side note, because this piece is so small, I did something called back buttering. I back buttered this piece just to make sure that it sticks really good. But you don't want to put too much mortar on there because then that tile won't be level with the rest and it'll be a little bit raised. Thankfully, my tile is kind of a hammered look, so it really hides imperfections, and I'm not a professional, so I needed that. So when you're tiling a corner like this, you want to take one side all the way to the wall, and the other side you will tile all the way to the tile, but leave just enough space for your spacers, and that is where your T spacers come into play. So last night I did this section around my pot filler, and I honestly didn't record it just because there was a lot of back and forth between me going to the saw and measuring and trying to get this just right. It's not exactly 100% perfect, but I really think that once I do the grout and caulk, it'll look okay. So I want to kind of show you what I did. If this piece will move. So essentially, I put my top piece here, and I had a piece of cardboard, this one right here, and I held it up underneath to kind of get a template, top and bottom, and I put it on my tile. And then when I took my tile to the saw, I just kind of grinded it in the shape of like a half circle on both sides, and then the top one is just a center piece, and I laid them on. Now my pot filler has like this faucet cover that goes right there, and this piece here actually got cut a little bit more, but it was my second piece that I had done, and I didn't want to do another one and keep wasting tile. So that small piece I'll just put grout in and caulk, and then when it's done, I don't really think you'll be able to tell much about it, especially when you stand kind of further back from it. I think it'll be fine, but I am about to continue on. Okay, we have finally made it to day 5. So we have made it all the way on the coffee bar side and the bottom across all of that, and we've gotten just a little bit past the pot filler. And now as I move up again, like I said, I'm tiling to the ceiling. I would have to slow down in certain areas because notching around these floating shelves. So basically what you're seeing here is wood that my cabinet maker attached to studs with like a metal rod that sticks out for support for my floating shelves. And my floating shelves are hollow, they slide right over that. And then I drilled the shelf onto the wood, the left side and the right side of it where it's attached to the cabinet. That is the side that attaches to the floating shelf. So I'm notching around these actual wood pieces here, but you don't see that once I hang the shelves back up. But again, you have to slow down, you have to figure out your math calculations and your cuts and all that, and it just takes time. It's so much easier to tile when you have just an open area and you don't have things you have to cut around. But again, cutting around things is not impossible. You just have to slow down and pay attention. If you follow me on Instagram, then you probably have seen some of these clips already in my stories. I like to add them there and add music to it, and then when it's all done, I create a little highlight for you to refer back to if you want to look at those videos. And I was actually having trouble with Instagram and the music that I was adding to the videos. It was like flagging some of them, so anytime you have a video and it gets flagged and you want to later use it in a highlight, it won't let you. So I was letting everybody on Instagram know that I was also preparing a YouTube video. So you can head to my Instagram if there's other things that you want to see on this as well. But everything, all the content that was filmed for this is also put into these YouTube videos. And like I said, it's going to be 2-part videos due to the nature of the project. It's a long project. I think all in all, it took me about 2 weeks to get this done, which is really not that bad for one person doing it by yourself and just doing a little bit each day, and especially considering the fact that it was only my second time to ever even do tile. So I'm pretty proud of it, and I cannot wait to show y'all the end result. Again, the second part to this video will be uploaded next week on Tuesday. So you'll have to stay tuned to that. But at the end of this video, I do give a midway reveal picture, so you get to see that. But my goal here is to have this video showing all of the tile work and kind of just talking you through basically how to tile and how to make the cuts and things like that. And then the second video is going to be more of just the grouting process and finishing everything up. If you have any questions, like specific questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section here on the video, or you can always DM me on Instagram and ask me anything. Again, I'm not a professional, so I might not have the answer, but I might know. So feel free, don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions. So the tile pattern that I am doing here is a subway tile pattern, and there are all different kinds of ways that you can lay your tile and different options, but I've always loved the subway tile pattern. And when it comes to grout color options and choices, I'll talk more about that in the next video when I'm actually going to be doing the grouting. But the brand of this tile is Satori, Satori, and I actually bought it from Lowe's. And I must really like that brand because I later realized that all the tile in my house was that brand. And I didn't go out specifically looking for the brand. I just picked the colors and designs that I liked, and just so happened that all the ones I liked were all from the same company. So go Satori, you make some good tile. But another thing is the cost. Like, it's definitely very budget friendly. So if you're in the process of wanting to do some tile work, I would definitely check out Lowe's and look at the Satori tiles. So now I'm going to trim the edges around my range hood so that my tile will slide directly behind it and I don't have to notch around these trim pieces. And what I've done is I've put my tile up to it to kind of see where it's going to hit. And then I'm going a little bit further than that because I have to account for the mortar that will be behind it. And I want it to slide through, and then if there is any gaps there, I can caulk that after. But I'm going to use a little tool, a little handsaw tool, to kind of cut those edges. Okay, I've trimmed a couple of the edges, if you can see. And I've done that much on both sides. And that's about all I can handle for tonight. I used this tool. I don't know what it's called, but it's my dad's, and that's what I used to trim it. I wanted to show y'all a little midway recap to show you kind of what all I have done so far. I think today makes day 5 of the tile project. I've been doing just a little bit each day when I get home from work, and I'm taking it a little bit at a time. I'm going all the way to the ceiling with my tile, and so that's taken me a while, but again, I know that I want to go slow with this process. I don't want to speed it and slap it on there because this is a focal point in my house. Remember, my kitchen and my living room are very open, so I want it to look really good. And I'm not a professional, so it takes time. But I'm going to turn the camera around and kind of walk you through and show you where we're at up to this point. So I still had to take off these spacers. This is what was done last night. And I stopped here instead of going all the way to the top because once I get up here, I'm gonna be making a cut. I'm pretty much gonna have to cut this tile and just rip it in half to get it to fit right there. And last night it was dark, I couldn't hardly see, and cutting in the dark is not always a best option. So I chose to stop here, and I'll continue today with that and just see as far as I can go until dark tonight. It's 3:30 now, so it's summertime. Hopefully I have quite a bit of sunlight, so we'll see. But I started with this section over here, and then I came around and I've done all of that. I've done around the pot filler, and now we're just working my way up. And I'm gonna go all the way up to the ceiling. Wish me luck. I'm about to get back to it. So this is me back buttering a tile, and usually you will back butter your smaller tile pieces, or you can back butter if it's a larger tile and you feel like it needs more mortar, then you'll have mortar on the wall as well as the tile. The key to anytime you back butter is making sure that the mortar is level on the tile and then on the wall. Now, as I'm working my way up the wall, you'll see I did more back buttering than actually laying out mortar and then working, just because it was taking me a while to do some work and I didn't want to leave the mortar on the wall and it dry up. Mortar will dry. I mean, you have time to work on it, but it will dry, so you have to be careful about that and make sure that when you put the mortar on the wall, you're ready to do the work. So when it came to areas like this where I had a lot of cuts to make and I knew I was going to be going back and forth a lot to the saw, I didn't feel comfortable just lathering up the area with mortar, so it made more sense for me, and it gave me more time to do the work and slow down by doing back buttering for each piece. Now, it does make you take longer if you have to do it that way, but again, it's one person doing this and I'm not a professional, so I knew it was going to take me a while, and it just is what it is. So next you'll see me start tiling up the side of the range hood, and my range hood is kind of like at an angle on both sides, so it was kind of hard for me to figure out that angle and that cut, and I'm going to show you a trick that I learned. So always remember to work smarter, not harder, and think outside the box whenever you're doing a DIY or a home project. Sometimes some household simple tools can work in your favor to help you figure out just what you need. Finally at the point where I'm tiling beside my range hood, but I have this weird angle that I have to figure out, and last night I was trying to measure like from here to here and here to here, and make the line on the tile and cut it, and it just really wasn't working. Plus, if I continue with that method, it'll take me like 50,000 years to get this done, and I have both sides to complete. So I have realized there has to be a smarter and easier way. So I have a trick that I'm gonna try, and I'm hoping and praying that it works. Let me show you. All right, so this was my idea. I ran up to the dollar store and I got this wax paper. I have cut it and taped it on the wall, and I've used a pencil to kind of trace the line of the range hood down. And as I work my way up, I'll just cut out each section, and that will serve as a template. I'll lay that on the tile and cut it out. And in a perfect world, that piece will fit exactly as it should. So I don't know if it's gonna work, but I'll keep y'all posted. But this was my idea. I was so excited to see that that actually worked, because I had spent like hours the night before trying to figure that out, and I was like, I know I have not come this far just to come this far. So again, think outside the box. Just grab what you have or run up to your local dollar store and get what you need. But I was so pleasantly surprised to see that that actually worked. Now this is day 8, the final day. You will see an outfit change here, and I will explain. I was outside working, and we haven't had rain in a month of Sundays, and lo and behold, I'm outside working on the saw and it decides to come a downpour, so I had to change. But again, this is day 8, which is the final day of the tile project, and I cannot wait to show it to y'all. So I hope that you really have enjoyed watching this video. I have enjoyed putting it together. Again, like I said, it's going to be a 2-part video, so you're seeing all of the tile work here. The second video will be more of the grouting and explaining how that process is and how it works, and then kind of showing you through the end result as well. But stay tuned. I'm going to do a midway reveal at the end of this video. So I know somebody's going to say something, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. My ceilings are 10-foot tall ceilings, which is why I needed the stool on top of my countertops to reach the ceiling. And for reference, I am short. I'm only 5 foot tall, so obviously I needed the step stool. I was careful. I made sure that anytime I was on the stool that somebody was at home. I wasn't home alone trying to do this, although if you know me, I would have been, but I was instructed to be safe and be cautious, so I listened and I made sure that somebody was there. Now, it could have been my children, maybe my dog, but somebody was there. But I was so determined at this point in the project to get it done that, I was ready. I was so ready. And I know that you know that feeling too. Even if you haven't done like a DIY or a home project, we have all found ourselves where we've been working on something and we're just so ready to get it done, and we get to the very end and we're just trying to keep our eyes straight ahead and stay focused. And that's exactly where I was at this point. And we have finally made it to the very end of the beginning, I guess you could say. So this is the final side of the tile, and you will get to see me lay the last piece, which is a glorious feeling. But again, I have hoped that y'all have enjoyed watching this. I know this video is a little bit longer than most of my videos, and it actually, like I said, is a 2-part video just because of the nature of the project. But I love DIY and I love home projects, and I love sharing these things with y'all. This was one of the biggest reasons that I created this YouTube channel, so I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the like if you've enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you have any feedback and you have any questions. And be on the lookout because next Tuesday, July 26th, I believe, at 2:30 p.m. will be the second part that I will be posting to this DIY home tile project video.